Hello, and welcome to today's Makerspace Kit. This week we'll be making book ornaments out of cardstock. Before we begin, please take a moment to gather the following items. You should have just enough paper in your kit to create 3 to 6 book ornaments. For the first ornament, you'll need to gather 1 piece of string and 1 to 2 sheets of the printer paper provided. I'll be using 2 just to make the ornament seem a little bit fuller. You'll need the patterned sheet of paper and one of the solid colored cardstock sheets. Let's begin. Grab your 1 to 2 sheets of printer paper, your scissors, and the stapler. The first thing we're going to do is fold the printer paper in half lengthwise, aka hot dog style. Then you're going to cut along the crease you just made with your scissors. We're going to repeat this step 2 times, for a total of 3 times. Once you cut, go ahead and stack the sheets together and fold lengthwise again to create the crease that you need to cut. Do this one more time, and if there's any wonky edges left that you don't like, you can trim them off. So now we're going to do the final cut. We're going to fold it one final time, but we're not going to cut this crease, we're going to staple it. But since I've chosen to do 2 sheets of printer paper, I'm going to fold and cut the second sheet before stapling all of it together. So again, repeating the steps from before, I'm just going to fold and cut along the crease. Stack the sheets together, fold lengthwise again, make the crease, and cut. Alright, I'm doing the final cut, and then I just need to fold it one more time. Alright, so now that I have both of these pages cut and folded, I'm going to nestle the second one into the first one, like so, and then flip it over after stacking the pages together so that the crease ends up facing you. So flip it over, crease side up, and then we're going to staple 3 times along the edge. So I'm going to line up the stapler just a tiny bit over the center edge, and when you press down, it should leave a staple in the very center. If it's not completely centered, it's okay. We're covering this part up with cardstock later on. So staple it 3 times on the top and bottom edge and the center. Next, we're going to grab the solid color sheet of cardstock, and we're going to trace the book over it. You want to do this in a way that leaves you with essentially 2 rectangles the size of the book, and a really thin rectangle the size of the spine. I personally did this by marking the corners of the book with a dot and using my straight edge to connect the dots. And I'll show you in a moment what I mean. We're going to cut these out, and these are going to help stabilize the cover of the book. That way it's not bending too easily. Okay, so you want to cut out this little template you just created. And there you have it. 2 backing sheets and 1 spine sheet. So now you're going to grab your patterned sheet of paper, and we're going to trace the 2 larger rectangles onto the pattern sheet. Don't want to throw away that really thin piece. That's going to be your spine in a second. Again, I'm just marking with a dot. And down the center. So we're going to cut these out, and these are going to be the end papers that go on the inside of the cover, the inside cover. Next, we're going to glue those backing boards that we created onto the solid color cardstock. You want to leave just a little bit of space in between. To make it easier to see, I'm going to trace with a marker along the edges. You don't have to do this. This is just so that it's easier to see on camera. Alright. So now leave a small border along the edge and a little bit of space between each of these little rectangles that you made. Alright, so we're going to leave a little border, same size along all the edges. And that's going to be the edge of your book cover. So it needs to be just a little bit bigger than the actual book pages. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and roll some adhesive on here. This is where you can use your glue. Stick that down, press firmly, let it dry if you're using glue. And you don't want to leave too much space in between the spine and the little page covers here, because otherwise when you fold it, it's going to be too long and it'll be wobbly. Some more adhesive. just like that. And once your glue has dried, go ahead and cut along the edges of your template, leaving that space, that little border of space where you cut. Just like so. Okay, and before we start folding, we're going to decorate the back. Before we start gluing all the pages in, we're going to decorate the back. So you want to fold along the spine. On either edge. This is so when you actually decorate the front of the book, you can see where the center of it is going to be. I'll show you in a sec. Alright, and this is going to be a cover. Next, you can fold along the inner edge of the larger rectangles. So first you fold it along the spine rectangle, then you're going to fold along the inner edge of the larger rectangles. Okay. That should be good. Make sure everything's still sticking down. So before we continue, you're going to want to grab your string, flip your book over to see the staple, and you're going to wiggle that staple loose just enough to slip that string through it. So you don't want to actually pull the staple off, you just want to have enough room to make a loop of the string and push it through the staple. Like so. Okay. And you're going to tie it off to the length that you want it to hang. I want it about yay long. And then trim off the excess. Okay? And this is what we're going to glue to the center of this, but before we do that, we want to decorate the cover. Alright, so let me show you a close-up of what I'm doing. I'm going to take my pen and mark the edges of the spine, those creases that we made earlier. And if you Google vintage book covers, you can get some inspiration to see how simple or complicated you want your cover to be. So I want to do those little binding marks here. The reason some of these books have those ridges is because when they bind these books by hand, there's like rope or string along the edges that hold the book together, that hold all the pages together, and they usually cover it with leather, and the leather, kind of bumps over the spine. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and do some little decorative dots and flowers in the center, and then I'm going to create a border on each of the pages. So for that, I'm going to use my straight edge. And flip it over and do the same to the bottom side. just do these like little decorative shapes. Just going to show you how I did those. You don't have to follow along with this exact design if you don't want to. This is just one option. And I'm going to put one on each corner. Right? And I want to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to line up border there so that they're roughly the same height. Okay, and just like before, I'm going to do those little decorative corners. Okay, and you can leave it at that. For me, this feels just a tad too simple, so I'm going to be adding a little bit more. So I want to do a title. And I have seen people print out an actual copy of a book cover and then just glue it onto the back of one of these. And you're welcome to do that, but I prefer the hand decorated ones. It's kind of nice to get, the whole family doing them together. It's really not that complicated. I'm only adding like little tiny circles along the edge of the border just to give it some kind of interesting pattern. Okay. Okay. Now that the cover has been decorated and the inner pages have been stapled and tied off, we're going to glue the whole thing into the book cover. So what I'm going to do is put some adhesive along the spine, which it won't hold too much because of how thin the book is, but it's better than nothing. But the real thing that's going to hold it together are these little covers right here. We're going to glue the very outer page to this cover. And just lay it flat there. Press it down and do the same to the other side. Okay, and if you're adding glue, you want to let the glue dry just to the point where it's kind of tacky or sticky, but not wet. Okay, so now that these outer sheets are stuck on there, we're going to grab the pattern sheets that we cut earlier, and we're going to glue them right on top. So this one didn't glue perfect. I'm going to go ahead and take it off while it's still fresh. That's okay if it's not perfect. You can trim off some of this because you're going to cover it with that pattern sheet in just a moment. Okay, grab your pattern sheets and you're going to glue them in just like that. Okay, grab your adhesive. And stick it down so that it has just a little border. Alright, final placement. Press them down and there's your book. Pretty neat. I hope you enjoyed this week's Makerspace kit. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.